Hi everybody, Dr. Pedram Shojai here with Dr. Sara Gottfried at the Health Bridge. Hi Sara.
Hi Pedram. Hey everyone.
Hey, so there's a thing happening. There's been a measles outbreak at Disneyland, and it's making national news, and it's becoming a really big deal. And as a parent, this is scary because you want to run out and take your kid to all these types of places, and all of a sudden it brings back all of these really scary notions of how unsafe the world can be. And so I want to talk about this today because we've got a lot of people that are worried about this type of thing. It's like, well, if it's at Disneyland, it could be anywhere, and what do I do? What do you say, Sara?
Yeah, let's talk it up. I feel like measles is one of those things that we don't hear about that often. There's an outbreak that occurs once in a while, but who expects it at Disneyland? I mean, what happened was a couple of kids were basically at Disneyland between December 15th and December 20th of last year, and we are seeing these reports of people getting exposed, including employees. There's some new data on employees, right, Pedram?
Yeah, about 5 employees just came down with it. We said 42 cases of measles related to Disneyland been diagnosed in California, 3 in Utah, 2 in Washington, 1 in Colorado, 1 in Mexico, and the Mexican one is kind of serious because it's a 22-month-old girl. And, the California health officials, just to be clear, said Disneyland did nothing wrong. I mean, look, this is a place where a lot of people gather, and it's a thing, right? Measles is one of the most contagious viruses around. We don't see it that often, but it can linger in the air for hours, and people can get infected, just by being in a place where someone had measles. And these are kind of the epidemiology issues that we have living in places where there's people, and this is, this kind of likens what happened to Europe during the plagues. It's just, you have a lot of people around you, and people get sick, and it starts to spread, and this is what the CDC and a lot of these people are really freaked out about.
Yeah, it's interesting. And you and I did a show on vaccination. We talked about kind of a more compassionate schedule for vaccination, except for measles. So let's talk a little bit about, one of the ways of preventing measles is to get vaccinated. The schedule is usually to get 2 vaccines as a child, and that provides 99% immunity so that you're not going to get measles 99% of the time. I think those 2 doses are at 12 to 15 months. This is according to the Center for Disease Control. And then again, between the ages of 4 and 6. Now, your son isn't quite old enough to have gotten his measles shot, but what's your plan in terms of vaccine schedule?
We're going to do measles. We're going to do measles. I think that's a reasonably safe thing to go for. And again, we're just making sure it's not mercury laden and all that. I can see Disneyland. I can see the Disneyland fireworks from my house. So this is close to home. And, a lot of the kids that go here, put it this way. Lorenzo, who's on our staff, has a season pass to Disneyland. He's there all the time, right?
So go Lorenzo.
Go Lorenzo.
I love hearing these weird facts. That's awesome.
Totally. We just got some new 4K cameras, and he's like, hey, can I go test them out? And, invariably he comes back with footage from Disney, and it's just like all this wonderful stuff. And so it's right here. It's up close and personal. My wife's best friend's a pediatrician, and she's like, look, I'm seeing all these cases from people missing vaccines. Now, the other end of this, and we're going like east meets west meets like far left, is a lot of, I've heard some chatter about people saying, oh, this is the establishment kind of pushing back because they're trying to scare people into getting vaccines. It's an argument that is hard to substantiate, in my opinion, right? Measles is a thing. People are getting measles. This is why we get vaccines. Now, that doesn't take away from the kind of stance that I think we collectively took, but I'll speak for myself, that I took, saying, the vaccination schedules in this country are obscene, and that we can adjust for the amount of vaccines we get and boost up the vitality and all the things that we can do to not bombard a young child's immune system with too many things at once. But I, for one, I'm getting a measles vaccine for my kid.
Good. Well, I'm glad you're doing that. And I think an important piece here is to talk about what's the risk of getting measles? Is it such a big deal? As we do our East meets West meets best, I want to make sure that we're bringing in kind of the best of the Western science, unbiased, like an investigative reporter. And here's what we know. We know that when you get measles, about 1 in 20 will develop pneumonia. And pneumonia is kind of the biggest risk of developing measles. And then we know from the Center for Disease Control, again, that about 1 in 1,000 kids, up to 1 in 2,000, will die. So that's the risk of death. It's on the smaller side, but it's a pretty miserable experience to have measles, especially to have pneumonia. And again, you can prevent it 99% with these 2 vaccinations. So I think one of the approaches, kind of the mixing the art and the science of medicine here, is to do what you described, to look at the vaccine schedule and to say, okay, what am I actually at risk for here? Well, Pedram, you live pretty close to Disneyland, and there's a measles outbreak. And so I imagine when your son comes up to that 12 to 15 month window for getting measles, you're going to do it. You said you would. And I've done the same for my children because of the risk associated with measles. My daughter also has a pertussis outbreak at her school. It's something that we've seen quite a bit in San Francisco. And so pertussis, I want to make sure that my kids are getting pertussis. So it allows us to be kind of smarter, wiser about figuring out, if you want to be less aggressive with your vaccine schedule, to figure out, okay, here's the things that we think are important in terms of my kid getting vaccinated.
Yes, and I love where you're going with that. I want to say that what we collectively have decided here is, I let the kid go out in the garden and he's got all kinds of bacterial exposure, and I let him take that kind of immunological hit and really start to develop antibodies and kind of develop a symbiotic relationship with good bacteria and all this kind of stuff. And it's really about allocation of resources. How much, like if you were to, here I go with my metaphors again, if we were talking about budgetary spending and like the kid was a country, how much do you want to go into domestic spending versus, wartime economy? How much do you want to spend on the military? And taking, the risk of getting measles is like, okay, great, now we're in a protracted war and we're going to spend a ton of resources fighting this thing off instead of allocating those resources towards brain development and, higher cognition and creeping and crawling and all the different things that the kid can be working on and adapting towards in this very critical stage of development. You don't want them to be back on their heels. And so certain things, yes, absolutely, live cultured sauerkraut and all kinds of things that I've been exposing this kid to, and 2 Labradors that are, not sterile, versus measles. And so for me, that was kind of the stance that we took, is let's go good bacteria and let's kind of get the big bad stuff vaccinated within a sane regimen.
That's so good. It's kind of that both and. It's not like you do the vaccinations and then you don't get the good bacteria. I think it's important to be thoughtful about the vaccinations, and you do all these other things that we talk about every week on the show to be vital, to, really make sure that your microbiome is healthy, because that is really the portal to your immune system. Most of your immune system lives in your gut. If you've got a healthy gut, you're going to be less likely to take that hit if you, for say, maybe you go to Disneyland and you get exposed to the measles virus. So I think you're less likely to develop measles if you've got this really healthy matrix that is meeting the virus.
That is right there, I think, where we can step out in front of parents right now who are listening to this, who are concerned. Because, look, it's airborne, right? So you could say, oh, we got hand sanitizer, don't touch anything. And it's an airborne virus to a certain extent. And, whether you get it or not, if you're there and you're exposed to it, it's really a question of whether you take the hit, whether your body will succumb to it in a lot of ways, right? And so really what I would like to say is, it's not about Disneyland, because there's a million Disneylands out there. There's the mall, there's a school, there's the mommy and me, there's, you can't lock your kid up, right? But what you can do is give them a fighting chance. So if you're providing sugar on a regular basis to that child, you're diminishing their immunity. If they're taking more dairy than they should and they're dairy sensitive, you're diminishing their immunity. If they're taking artificial foods, really all of the things that put them in a one down position are probably, if we could follow these kids around and map out their diets versus the 100,000 kids that were there that day that didn't get it, What are the commonalities there, and what are the deficits in their nutrition and their immune system that was kind of that put them in that position is really, I think, the bigger question than, running away and hiding and playing ostrich because there's, measles out there. There's a million things out there.
Yeah, such a good point. I think that's a beautiful kind of through line for our show, Pedram. I mean, this is really the piece that we want our listeners to get. As we talk about the mess of healthcare and how we all need to reclaim our health, this is the measles outbreak in Disneyland is just another example of how you have choices. And if you're not making choices, then you're choosing this default system that leads to measles outbreaks. And so, do your part.
I have a quick story about this. My dear sister, who has 3 children now and is completely overwhelmed by, being, overrun, they're outnumbered at this point, right? And she ended up developing viral meningitis. The kids kept getting sick, and all of a sudden she's not feeling well. Now she's feeling really unwell. And it became it was a really scary thing. I mean, it wasn't bacterial and it was easier to deal with, and, she dealt with it, but she was just down and out and brain inflamed for a while, and she wasn't recovering fast, and it was really she kind of it scared the hell out of her, right? She was she faced her mortality to a certain extent, and she couldn't run around and help, and the kids are they're young kids, so as she'd kind of cleared that but was down in the dumps, they were visiting some family out in Phoenix, and I said, listen, I'm texting my friend Dr. Alan Christensen. I want you to go in there and have him run a vitamin drip for you. And so she said, okay, I don't know, she's a dentist, right? And so she's okay, yeah, sure, that sounds great. And she's like, yeah, I don't know if that helped or not. And all of a sudden, a week later, she's like, hey, I think that really helped. And then a couple days ago, she was here at the house. She says, I really want to talk to you about that because since then, my kids got sick 6 times. My husband, all the people that are around me, everyone was getting sick, and I was the only person that wasn't needing coffee, and I was standing strong and I was handling it. I think that totally helped. I said, yeah, it's subtle, right? You nourish your body takes care of itself. And so, vitamin drip therapy really made sense for someone who is down with viral meningitis. And yeah, I actually highly recommend it for most people, but it's out of reach for some people. It's not, it's not the cheapest stuff out there. But the moral of the story is give your body what it needs, and then you have a force field to bop off and just not allow measles to land or anything else to land. So it works. It doesn't happen overnight. My sister's a smart doctor, and it took her a while to realize how well it had worked, because that's how vitality works, right? When you get sick and you're down and out, you feel it, and you clear a fever, you feel it. But when you try to build that cushion, you might not recognize what's happening at first until everyone else is sick and you're not.
Oh, it's such a good story. I love how we're changing health one conventional doctor sister at a time. It's so good. Yay!
Totally worked out. So, I think that's what we got on this, you guys. It's really important to understand that you build your resilience. Things happen. It's not Disneyland's fault. Measles spread. Vaccines are a thing. You kind of know our position on it. We kind of sit in the middle, and just take a sensible approach to health. Is that anything to add there, Sara?
No, I think that's right on. I'm sure stress is part of this conversation too, because that affects your immunity and pokes holes in your gut and causes problems with your immune system underneath. But, we talk about that every show. I'll just put a footnote here.
Yeah, also don't stress out.
Yeah, stop stressing out.
Facebook.com/thehealthbridge. We'd love to hear your comments, and we'll see you next time.
Okay, bye everybody.
All right, thanks.